Hello, manic.mercurian here with a birth chart reading, and in this reading we will dive into a lot of the general personality of this person as well as the relationship sector, so what they need in a relationship and what kind of astrology would be a good match for this person. And then we'll also kind of talk about what this person needs in their career, what types of careers they might be suited for. And I wanted to mention too, some people have this notion that, like I have free will, so how does my astrology dictate my personality or dictate what I'm going to do if I have free will? So it's a free will versus astrology type of thing. And really the answer is that's I feel like it's a false dichotomy. Astrology does not dictate what we do. We of course have free will. We can live our lives as we choose. We can do whatever we please. But astrology, and in particular these birth charts, really show what types of themes we've come here to explore. So exactly how we explore those themes is up to us. It always looks a little bit different. That's why astrology can be a lot more difficult for predicting like really specific physical events. But they can show you what themes we are exploring. So that's kind of what I'll get into here. And if you're interested in a reading like this, you can email me for more information at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Otherwise, I also made a video that talks about the different types of readings I offer, my rates, let's see, how to submit payment, how to, actually get the reading and all of those finer details. So I will link that video in the description below so you can check that out if you're interested. But without further ado, this birth chart reading is for Thursday, February 26th, 1987 at 1:23 p.m. in Kirkland, Washington. And I just wanted to say I think it's so cool you were born at 1:23 p.m. We don't have enough time in this video to talk about numerology, but I would suggest you could explore that as well, being born at kind of a funny birth time, because there is a reason, there's information and meaning behind the numbers that we are associated with. So you can check that out for information as well. But you have Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aquarius with Cancer rising. And the first thing I really noticed about this chart is the heavy water influence. Like even just in Pisces, for example, there's a lot of energy focused on Pisces. Not only the Sun is there, but also Mercury and the midheaven and Jupiter as well. And this is kind of a powerful dynamic. Some astrologers would disagree over whether this is called a stellium or not because um, you know, depending on who you ask, it's either 3 or 4 planets, and you could include or not include the midheaven. But the point is, you have a big cluster in Pisces. So Pisces is the last sign, as you may, probably know. It's a very intuitive, dreamy sign. Pisces, there's a lot going on. Pisces can be a mess at times. It can be beautiful and creative and spiritual. Um, like I heard an astrologer call it the garbage can of the zodiac, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just that Pisces is this combination of all the signs. Pisces has the job, the task of integrating all the information, all the experiences learned from the entire cycle, from all the signs before it, and its own sign as well, integrating all of that information and meaning, experience, in order to allude to and make room for the next cycle, to make room for what will become Aries and what will become the beginning of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, so that's a huge task. That's why I lovingly say, Pisces can be a mess, and I say that very lovingly. And don't get me wrong, Pisces is a very highly skilled and talented sign. It's extremely creative. And with Pisces, we get this rare look into the subconscious and into the psychic realms, into the non-physical. That's why Pisces can be very misunderstood, and other people may it may just seem so scattered from the outside. With Pisces, there's this lack of structure because Pisces doesn't have a strong ego. It wants to just melt with everything. It sees itself in everything else, and it sees everything else in itself. With Pisces, there's no membrane, there's no outer wall between you and everything else, between you and other people, between you and your experiences. You soak everything up much like a sponge. You have that type of personality here. Pisces is represented by the fish, and there's a lot of meaning there. Unlike the other water signs, Cancer and Scorpio, Cancer the crab and Scorpio the scorpion, they both have shells. So although they have soft insides, being water signs, they have those hard exteriors. But Pisces is different. Pisces the fish is soft on the inside and soft on the outside. So all the emotional sensitivity and vulnerability Pisces kind of just lets that hang out. It doesn't try to hide it at all. So you would very much resonate with a lot of these kind of general themes of the sign of Pisces with all your Pisces placements. Again, not only the sun, but you also have Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And right now, as I'm filming this, we are approaching a Mercury retrograde season. Mercury is about to turn retrograde this week. I believe on Wednesday. Excuse me, on Tuesday. I'm still going over my notes here. But this is an opportunity for you to kind of experience the Mercury retrograde season. A lot of people experience it as a very dysfunctional time, as I'm sure you are probably aware. But you being born with Mercury retrograde, you're used to that energy. So if anything, you would feel more in your element, more comfortable, more confident, maybe more outspoken, because you're used to it. You get it. And the Mercury retrograde energy in transit as well as in a natal chart such as yours, it pushes us to go within and to go backward, kind of literally. So rather than proceeding forward in a very linear and logical and set way, Mercury retrograde kind of is more scattered. It's more dreamy. It's more intuitive. And it really the retrograde energy is very similar to Pisces in a lot of ways because it is kind of dreamy, intuitive, creative. So and there's this extra window again to the subconscious as well with retrograde energies, particularly Mercury retrograde. Okay, um, so yeah, it would make you very creative, and then also because Mercury is in detriment and in fall in Pisces, this is a very challenging placement. It means that it can be hard for you to think in a logical, linear way, especially with Mercury retrograde. So this would point to you maybe having trouble in school. It'd be hard for you to focus, because school is it's like a factory mindset. Everything's on a conveyor belt. You need to learn everything in this, very structured way. I mean, that's very specific and structured way. And then, you have class after class. For you, that would be very difficult. You would be almost better, at learning from experience or learning from nature. It'd be hard for you to just sit and just consume information in almost a kind of contrived sense. So on the one hand, having Mercury retrograde in Pisces does point to you having maybe like learning so-called learning disabilities, or maybe you'd have a hard time like speaking or writing. Many people have speech impediments that have this, but this is not purely a bad thing. It's not just an inconvenience at all. Despite pointing to having these challenges here, these potential challenges with those kind of intellectual abilities, people with Mercury in detriment like this and Mercury retrograde, like many of them are also geniuses as well. The whole reason behind that is just that they just don't think the quote unquote normal way. They might not thrive in the school system that we have in place, but that doesn't mean they're not intelligent. You would just think in your own kind of very creative, very intuitive way. You would just pick up on things very quickly, and if you have to like in a math problem or something, if you have to explain and show your work, that would be hard for you because for you, you just kind of get information, you just get downloads, you don't know why you know it, but you just do. It's very intuitive for you. That's what I'm saying. So Mercury ruling the intellect in your chart is behaving a very irregular or unusual way. And again, that may be challenging because it means that people don't understand you. You don't fit the mold of what we're supposed to be or what have you. But again, this is very very valuable as well because you have a unique perspective, and it also makes you more open to unusual beliefs or beliefs that the mainstream frowns upon, like astrology, for instance. You'd be more inclined to give some thought and to entertain. You having Mercury in detriment and retrograde shows that potential that you may have beliefs or thoughts that are unconventional or against the grain, against the status quo or what have you. So very interesting stuff right there. Very interesting. I'm sure you have a very unique thought process and maybe unique mannerisms, unique ways of kind of phrasing things as well. Um, so I don't know. Although this points to you having maybe difficult speaking or writing, this can definitely be overcome. Detriment energies, typically we strengthen them as we, go on in our lives. They're just naturally kind of challenged or debilitated. So I think that there's actually, really great potential there if you, can get over that initial hurdle, that initial challenges there. Being able to present your really unique way of thinking or the unique information that you have access to or that you're interested in could be very valuable not only for yourself but for other people as well. So that's just something to think about. Okay, I've said so much, but we haven't even gone past your sun sign really yet, or Pisces, the Pisces sign. But besides Sun and Mercury, you'll also have Jupiter in Pisces, and that's pretty powerful just because Jupiter is in domicile there. You have a sort of Jupiterian connection. I say that just because Jupiter is associated with Pisces and Sagittarius. It rules both of those signs. Um, but Jupiter is exalted in Cancer as well, so Jupiter has a connection to Cancer. And being a Pisces sun with these other Pisces planets, and then a Cancer rising, you have a lot of Jupiter themes, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment here when I say you have a Jupiter ruled chart. But one last thing is that even your moon is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Sagittarius. So Saturn being in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter again. So all really you have a lot of energy in your chart that's ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is the planet which it 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 wants us to expand our consciousness. Okay, so it wants us to expand our consciousness, and the ways we can do that, are plentiful. There's many different ways. Common ways we would do that are through, especially back in the day in these more ancient astrologers, they would say, religion. It's always the church, because at that time that is how you would, expand your consciousness, or that's how you would learn about these kind of more philosophical or higher. That's where the higher knowledge was, I guess. In modern times, we have the university to replace the church. That's the place where you go to get this higher knowledge. But it doesn't have to always be the religion or the church, the temple, the university, the college. It definitely is all those things, but it doesn't have to be. You can get higher knowledge from many other places as well. But the point is, having all this energy in your chart, you would be inclined to get some kind of higher knowledge. So, again, whether you do that at a church or a university, or whether you go to nature to get your kind of realizations and breakthroughs and higher knowledge, that's a really key element in your chart. Another way we can expand our consciousness is just through experience, through life experience. And so I find, in my kind of subjective way of putting it, people with a lot of Jupiter energy in their charts have really interesting life stories. They have all these tangents to their lives where, they go on adventures, they travel far, or they have, I don't know, very kind of crazy things happen to them. This also happens when you have a lot of water and fire in your chart, because these are the more emotional elements, and they're very soulful, they're very passionate, and so they're more inclined to, I don't know, to kind of go on these wild adventures and have really wild experiences. And I know that's kind of subjective, but at the same time, if you have this energy in your chart, I feel like you know what I mean. That you've had a lot of different experiences. It's almost like you've had many lives within this one. Things have not always just been stable. Like, for instance, I wouldn't see you as necessarily having the same job for all your life, or for even like 10 years, especially early on. For you, things are constantly changing. It's almost, it's more about what do they say? It's more about the journey than the destination, especially for you. Because a lot of what you're meant to do here is just to learn from all the different experiences that you have. So you're meant to kind of just go out there, go out into the world, explore. And again, that's kind of vague, but at the same time, that's what these Jupiter energies want from us, is just to explore anything and everything just for the sake of experiencing it. Um, because from that experience and from that knowledge, I would argue those are the two major things that Jupiter pushes us to do, to get to attain knowledge and to attain experience. And from knowledge and experience come wisdom, and that's truly what it's all about. Now, you would not start off super wise. Like, you would have definitely a lot of like, you have this potential to be kind of like a genius. Like, you see things people don't, and that you would always have. However, there's also this naivete that you would have, and this is strong with Pisces energies, strong with mutable energies as well, and with Jupiter. Um, but the naivete and the openness go hand in hand. So especially as a very young person, you'd be so open to everything. It's almost like you wouldn't have discernment. And if it sounds like I'm criticizing you, I'm really not. There's a purpose behind that. You wouldn't have a filter because you wouldn't be meant to have a filter. Again, the whole point is for you to just go out and explore everything. Not everything you would explore would be pleasant or easy. A lot of it would be very challenging. Some of it you'd have very high highs and very low lows. Okay, especially early on. Because again, I'll just say it one more time that the whole point about the high highs, the low lows, this whole kind of roller coaster is the wisdom that will come out of that. So although people, may not understand you, especially early on, and they may think that you're foolish or they might not understand these adventures and misadventures, they don't understand that the sheer amount of wisdom that is coming from all of these eclectic experiences that you're having. Okay, and this will especially be very apparent when you get into your kind of later years. The more you kind of experience these twists and turns, the more you will eventually learn to stabilize. But as you do, because you've gone through all the experience, you know all these things that other people don't, because other people can kind of imagine what it's like to do this or that, and they can kind of think that they understand the lesson behind it. But you, having gone through these different experiences, you know exactly what it's like to experience it yourself. Okay. And again, I know that all that was kind of vague, but with the Jupiter and Pisces energies, these are in by their very nature, they are hard to define. They are very malleable and open. But I explained the theme there as best I could here, so hopefully that makes sense. You also have midheaven in Pisces, and that would finish our kind of Pisces talk here. However, I'm going to skip over that just for now because I still want to talk about the general personality just a little bit before I get into the career and public image that would be represented by the midheaven. Um, and before I leave Pisces, one thing I wanted to mention too is that the way your chart is configured is most of Pisces lands on the eighth house for you, despite your Sun and Mercury being close to the midheaven. I use equal houses, and so in the equal house system, you have Sun and Mercury in the eighth house. And actually, despite the Moon being in Aquarius, Moon is actually in eighth house too, barely. So although I don't usually go into the houses a lot in these birth chart readings, because you have so much focus in the eighth house, I thought I should just kind of run over that real quick here. Run through it real quick here. Okay, so the eighth house is, in modern astrology, a lot of people connect it to Scorpio and they say, oh, it's super intense and crazy. That's not always accurate. The eighth house is actually a very sleepy or kind of daydreamy house. It's a very chill, mellow place to be. At the time you were born, the way the sun was angled, the sun was still in the sky. It was still prominent. It was still daytime for sure, being 1:23 p.m. But it was low enough that it was definitely not setting yet. But like above the western horizon is the seventh house, and that's where the sun is setting. But above that house is the eighth house, and in that time period, we're experiencing pretty much full daylight still, but it's almost like there's a lull in the energy. It's almost like a nap time type of thing. We experience this in afternoon, usually late afternoon. Um, it almost gets kind of sleepy or relaxed in a way. Okay, there's like a break time around that time if we're working usually. Um, so so being born with that energy, it makes you kind of low key, easygoing, makes you very observant and kind of soulful, and these things kind of go hand in hand with Pisces as well. You would understand other people probably a lot more than they understand you, because I don't know. Again, you're very kind of psychic, intuitive. Things just occur to you. You kind of just get things. Um, you're definitely not a person who has to analyze things like Um, like for instance, as you can see, I'm very intellectual or analytical. I'm constantly analyzing things, and your approach would be very different. You don't have to do that, and in many ways, I admire your type of approach because yours is much faster, and it's physically and mentally easier because you don't have to go through figuring everything out and applying all this logic. To you, things kind of just naturally occur to you. like I guess I'm just describing intuition basically, but you have this really strong, and it's signified not only by your Pisces placements, but also by those same placements being in the eighth house. Eighth house is very intuitive, and it makes you kind of an old soul. Like you understand everyone else, but everyone else doesn't always understand you. But you have this kind of I don't know, emotional intelligence about you. Like you just kind of get people very well. I think, despite people not always understanding you, they are attracted to you. And the reason why I say that is much of because of your Cancer rising. Cancer rising people, give off this kind of nurturing, calm, familiar energy. And so it's very, very common for Cancer rising people to experience, like for instance, you'll experience people coming up to you saying like, "Do I know you from somewhere? I know you," or they might actually literally tell you that they know you when you know for sure you clearly don't know this person at all. This is really really common for Cancer rising people because again, you give off this energy like you're already familiar to people when really you may not actually be. So people trust you very easily. They open up to you very easily, and again, all of your Pisces energies completely go hand in hand with this and just strengthen it even more. All the Pisces energies that you have with your Cancer rising means that again you're very sensitive and you don't really try to hide it. You aren't afraid of being kind of openly emotional or emotionally vulnerable. And other people sense that, and that's why they let their guard around you. They feel comfortable and they feel safe with you. Um, Let's see. And actually, that's a good segue to go into. I don't know. First, I should talk about your moon in Aquarius. So, despite moon being, despite Aquarius having the name that it does, it's not a water sign. It's an air sign. So this is actually very different from all these more watery energies that you have that I've gone over thus far. Moon in Aquarius is much more detached, and what's interesting is that like at face value, Pisces is a very emotional sign, and at face value, Aquarius is a very emotionless sign. Now you are both. You have Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aquarius. So that's a lot of your personality. But what people don't realize is Pisces, despite being generally very emotional, can actually be very detached at times. It can remove itself and actually be pretty objective at certain times. On the flip side, Aquarius, despite being very emotionless or seeming emotionless, they actually feel very strongly deep down. They're very compassionate, they feel for other people. And so combining these two signs is very interesting because it means that you have both, you have all of it. So you can be very sensitive, very emotional, you can feel very strongly. But at the same time, having, Moon in Aquarius, Moon in an air sign, it means you're kind of detached. You can kind of just bounce around, float around. You don't like to get too heavily involved, with anything emotionally. You're more of a kind of dabbler. Again, it's all about exploring for you. So you want to kind of be here, be there, kind of try everything. Moon in Aquarius is also interesting because it gives you this kind of holistic perspective. So deep down, you're never just thinking about how you feel or what you think about a situation. You're always thinking about, how does everyone else feel? What are their thoughts? How does that fit in with, like the future later on down the road? It can almost make you kind of an overthinker. It gives you a lot to have to work with. And it could be, on the one hand, it can be a burden to have to deal with all these factors before you make a move or make a decision or say something. It can be hard to juggle all of that. But at the same time, or on the other hand, there's immense potential there, immense power. Especially having Sun and Moon in signs which are very different. Having both the creative and spiritual nature and the intuition of Pisces, but also that holistic and detached nature of Aquarius. Again, it's a lot to manage, but if you can get it done right, and this will be easier as you mature in age and have more experience, you'll kind of naturally get comfortable with this. But if you can kind of juggle all those and balance these different traits that you have, it can be very powerful. Having not just the intuition of Pisces, but also the strong logic and intellect of the Moon in Aquarius to know how to apply it or how to kind of strategize it. Um, and to know how does it fit in with the larger picture, because Aquarius is really good at that. How does it fit in with the long-term future plans? But also, how does your intuition and creativity fit in, with other people, other partnerships, your community, your tribe, your family, whatever it is, your workplace, etc. So yeah, that's very powerful. Also, having Sun and Moon and Mercury as well in Pisces and Aquarius, uh, these are the last two signs, and so they're kind of the oldest souls, so to speak. Um, and these are very dreamy energies. They're very dreamy and very big picture, very abstract. This is something we experience as we go through the 12 signs. Things start out more specific and more personal to us. Like we could start out with with Aries, it's just about ourselves, and things are very black and white. It's very simplistic, kind of. But as we move on through the whole zodiac, things get very abstract. We're not just dealing with themes that pertain to ourselves and our own desires. We're pertaining to themes that involve our family and our relationships and our place of work and our how we relate to society and how we experience the world at large and all these other factors. So by the time we get to Aquarius and Pisces, these are very old soul energies, and they deal with a lot. They're abstract. It's more complex, and they you would almost have like this dreaminess about you. Like people with Sun and Pisces, Moon and Aquarius, they always kind of look like they just woke up from a nap or something. Like they have this aesthetic about them that they're always kind of in one. They have one foot in this world and one foot in a different world, I guess you could say. They're always kind of up in their own minds, or up in, I don't know, the non-physical realm, or so to speak. So that's one part of having Sun and Moon in these two last signs of the zodiac. Um, it also means, and I've already touched on this a little bit, but this is another indicator that you really understand other people. You understand people of all walks of life. Again, because Aquarius and Pisces both rule sort of the freaks of our society, so to speak. So, outcasts and such. So you may feel like an outcast at times. You may feel like a weirdo, like you don't fit in. You don't know where you fit in with people. Um, but you're very compassionate, and I think because of that experience of not fitting in, and because you're very sensitive and compassionate, you don't want anyone else to feel like you have, like you know, feel left out or disenfranchised or what have you. Um, so you're very, very compassionate toward animals, children, people that are sick, anyone who's like, not completely empowered, or anyone who's vulnerable or sensitive in that kind of regard. Um, you really feel for them. You feel very deeply. So with your chart, I could see you doing something. I guess we could segue into the career now, but I could see you doing like community service, volunteering, helping at like a homeless shelter, helping animals, helping at an animal shelter, maybe being a veterinarian, or you could help people as well. You could be a nurse or doctor, something in the medical field. I've actually read charts for at least one nurse that had Sun and Pisces, Moon and Aquarius as well. So there you go. I think that's really, really important to you. You want to help people, and you want to help people in kind of a very direct way because, Moon and Aquarius can be detached, and this is a gift as well in terms of helping people, that you can be detached enough to be able to make logical decisions at times of maybe great emotional stress. Other people, the people that you're helping may not always be grateful, or, there may be a lot of pressure, may be a lot of stress, but you can remain just detached enough to make the logical decision despite that emotional situation. Okay, but at the same time, but besides the detachedness that you also have all those water energies that we talked about. So you also feel you're very emotionally accessible, again, like I talked about. So you would be very good at being like a nurse or something where you're directly caring for a patient. And again, it could be a veterinarian, something where you're helping people. And a lot of this, I can already see everything I just said in the placements that I've looked at, but the Pisces midheaven really just solidifies this. And having so many planets clustered around the midheaven, I think it means that you'd be very well understood at your place of work, at your profession, and it would be natural for you to gravitate toward a career that you feel secure with, that's comfortable, and that is, exactly what you're meant to do. So again, like I said, it wasn't hard for me to see in your chart. You want to help people. Um, that's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. So I think that's by far the biggest thing. You want a career you need a career where you can directly help people, take care of whoever's disadvantaged for whatever reason, um, by helping to enable them, nurse them to health, or maybe teach them something, um, do something to empower people or animals, what have you, etc. Um, okay, yeah, and that was pretty straightforward. It's not always so straightforward in a chart. I mean, other things that you might be good at would be like customer service again, because in a way that's the same thing. You're helping someone who's like technically kind of disadvantaged because they're seeking your services, whatever those might be. Um, you have that. I don't want to say charm, although that's definitely part of it. You have a charm or like people feel comfortable with you. Um, I don't know. You have that ability to make people feel at ease, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say. So, um, even if you're not necessarily doing something humanitarian or like health or medical, it could just be any kind of customer service thing you would be good at as well. But I'd really encourage you to do something where you can help the less fortunate. Okay, let's kind of bounce around your chart here a little bit. Actually, let's talk about the romantic sector of your life here. So I did kind of just look at this really briefly before I started filming, and this looks pretty straightforward as well. The reason being is because for romance and relationships, we of course need to take into account the sun and the moon. Everything I talked about, the general personality, of course, that matters a lot. But especially when we're talking strictly about romantic relationships and what we need in a partner, more than anything else, I look to Mars and Venus, and then the descendant most of all, even the most out of those three. Venus and Mars are more about what you're attracted to, what you desire. This is not necessarily about what you like need in a relationship. So you can be someone you're super attracted to and you are infatuated with, but that doesn't necessarily indicate long-term compatibility. For long-term compatibility, I would look at the descendant. But attraction is, of course, a major part of relationships as well. Definitely important too. And then Venus is also, I think, a little bit more important. Like Mars is more the sexuality, sexual nature, and then Venus would be more the approach you have with relationships. So kind of the personality you embody with relationships, and also the type of partner you're seeking. Um, so, and then yeah, so Mars, Venus, and the descendant are all in Earth signs. So this is pretty straightforward. Mars in Taurus, Venus in Capricorn, and descendant in Capricorn. Mars, Venus, descendant. So this really points to you needing someone who has Earth in their chart. You would not only be attracted to that and desire it, the sexual aspect of relationships would match up with Earth for you, but also that's your approach to relationships with Venus there, and then also with your descendant in Earth and an Earth sign. It shows that that's truly what you need. It's how you view other people. It's what you expect and need from other people, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So. You really need someone grounded and practical. So someone who's consistent, stable. Of course, I mean it sounds like we all need that, right? But this is especially true for you. You need kind of a rock. You're the person who's more kind of creative and less structured, more intuitive. And I'm seeing this often in charts actually, where there's usually one person who's more kind of wild and adventurous and spontaneous, and then there's another person that kind of holds everything together. That's more the rock, so to speak, or the more grounded person. So you would be the more spontaneous, adventurous, wild, intuitive, and creative person, the more dreamy and maybe artistic or what have you, and you generally lack Earth in your chart, which is it's interesting because your relationship sector and your romance and all of that, like I talked about, is so earthy. But other than that, there's really not much that you have in Earth signs. Other than that, it's really just your IC in Virgo and then your Neptune and Capricorn. So you do have a kind of lack of Earth in your chart. So this means that you can feel ungrounded at times. Like especially having these Pisces and Aquarius planets, you can feel crazy at times. You delve into these ideas and feelings that are very kind of far out there or bizarre. That other people might not relate to, and that you might not even understand yourself at times. So you can feel ungrounded. You can feel crazy. You can feel like lost in your own mind. That's part of it too. You have I think you have such a vivid inner world, which, and again, that's really great. That's so awesome for being creative and stuff, being inspired or dreamy, like, can be really good for coming up with ideas or inspiration. But again, that can be very difficult because how do you manage all that? How do you manage all these deep feelings and thoughts and, this whole vivid imagination that you have? It can be very hard. So the point I'm trying to make is, um, having a partner with Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo in their chart would be a breath of fresh air to you. Not only are you attracted to that, but it's also what you need. It would be, you yourself are not always very consistent, but you want someone to help you feel grounded and stable. So someone else who's very even keel and just kind of mellow and chill and grounded, who knows their limits, who someone who's a little bit black and white. Um, Things for them are kind of simple. You would you would be so attracted like that would just be the perfect thing for you because um, you've got enough nuance already. You've got enough different dimensions going on in your mind. You want someone that has a refreshing simplicity to them. Okay, and yeah, and again that would be Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. I think especially Taurus or Capricorn would work well, just because you have your Mars, Venus, and Descendant in those signs. But also those signs would sextile your Pisces placement, so these would be really harmonious aspects. Um, Despite them being, kind of different from you because they're more grounded, more even keel, like I talked about, you would also still have a lot in common. You'd both be kind of deep feelers, maybe more introverted, kind of more on the introverted side, or more deliberate with your actions. Earth and water are kind of heavier elements, so they feel deeply, I guess. So you would have those things in common. You'd both be kind of sensitive in those capacities, and you'd be maybe more introverted. So what I'm trying to say is it would be very complementary, Taurus or Capricorn. Virgo would be a little bit more difficult or different, difficult, challenging, because it would oppose all your Pisces placements. So it would it would take a lot of maturity and sometimes compromise from both of your parts for you to work well with someone with a lot of Virgo in their chart. It would tick a lot of boxes for you because they would be earthy, grounded, structured, stable, consistent. All of that, again, would be very grounded for you. It'd be very refreshing. But they'd also be very analytical and they'd get into a lot of, detailed, like, nuance, in terms of like you have a lot of nuance, but it's different. Pisces and Virgo are opposite. So they're both very nuanced and they're both about learning. They do have those things in common, but they do it in a completely different way. Pisces is more intuitive, more emotional, more dreamy, more non-physical. Virgo is more like literal, more physical in nature. So it'd be hard. There'd be a lot of compromise needed, and again, you and them would have to be very mature to handle each other's differences. So really, the easier connection I would think would be Taurus or Capricorn. Those are the most consistent signs that you can really find. They're um, and they're also very kind of heavy or dense. They're very solid. They lay the foundation for you themselves, I guess, too. Um, so that's what I really see for you most of all. Also, being a Cancer rising with Capricorn descendant, it means that you'd be attracted to Capricorn personalities most of all, probably even more so than Taurus. So you may often be attracted to people that are older than yourself. And even if they aren't literally older, they may be more experienced in some way. They may have more life experience, or I don't know, they may like their job may be very important to them. They may have worked at the same place for a long time, or they may run their own business. But you'd be attracted to someone who's very independent, who takes care of themselves, and who's kind of the boss. Maybe they're literally the boss at their place of work. But also, it's not even really about that. It's more just in general. Like they're always kind of in control, and they'd almost be the boss of the relationship a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that you should be with someone that's controlling and is trying to control you. What I'm saying is, being Cancer rising, you would be the one that's more nurturing in the relationship. You'd provide that, kind of emotional sustenance and that care. What they would provide, what your potential partner would provide, would be, again, the structure. They would make sure that the day today is going well, and and that all those kind of more mundane details are provided for. So they would provide the foundation, the structure, or some people like to say Capricorn builds the home, Cancer fills the home. Okay, so your partner would be the one, metaphorically or maybe literally building the home, building the foundation, and you would fill that home with love. You would make that home, you'd make that house a home, I guess you could say. Okay, and you can kind of just think about what that entails, because again, it's not really about the literal meaning of it. It's more about the themes behind it. So the point is that you would have this mothering, this nurturing energy, and you'd be attracted to someone who's in control, independent, maybe more experienced than yourself. In short, someone who's Capricornian. And you can read more about Capricorn to see that as well. But that's really, above anything else, that would be the sign that you'd be attracted to the most. Um, Especially if, like, let's say they had Capricorn or Taurus heavy in their chart, and then they had a lot of water. That would mean that you having some water in your chart, that would make things really easy as well. But Capricorn would also work really well because your moon is in Aquarius, so your moon is ruled by Saturn. Capricorn and Aquarius are very similar in a lot of ways since they're ruled by the same planet. So, yeah, Capricorn would work very well. It would work well with your moon, your sun, really all your planets. So, okay, and let's see what else here. Let's talk about your childhood here. I think that's the only thing I haven't mentioned really, and then we'll kind of wrap this up here. So you have your IC, and that's this little black arrow down here. It's in Virgo, and then your south node. It's not shown here, but it's always exactly opposite the north node. North node is at 11 degrees Aries, so your south node is at 11 degrees Libra. I look to South Node and IC a lot to look at childhood, because IC is very much your like literally your childhood, who you were as a child. So it means that you were almost kind of like a Virgo as a child. So you were very interested in learning. A lot of people that have Virgo and IC read a lot as a child, and they have this curiosity and this they're kind of intellectual children. Okay, and from that love of learning actually develops this intuition. So, like reading is a perfect example, because Virgo is attracted to, reading, for instance, and the more you read, the more you develop your imagination, because you're imagining everything you're reading, you're picturing it. So that's where, from this Virgo side as a child, that's where this heavy Pisces side would develop. So, we tend to go from our IC to our midheaven. So from this curiosity about learning information and maybe reading, for instance, from all of that would come the strong imagination, creativity, and intuition that would develop your Pisces midheaven. So so from this love of learning as a child comes your kind of sensitive, intuitive career and public image as an adult, if that makes sense. Um, let's see what else, and then also having South Node and Libra, to me, that points to you as a child being more of an observer. So, and especially combined with Virgo IC, you were, interested in just learning or observing. You may have been, you would be very interested in doing, activities like drawing, again, reading or writing, but also maybe drawing. Something like that where you can do something with your hands, or make something. You'd be more inhibited socially. You wouldn't be super wild at all. Like, I see you being a kind of mellow child based on this here, um, which is interesting, because I think maybe as you get a little older, you'd be maybe more out there and more adventuring, and kind of I don't know, being a lot more active, I guess, in your life. But as a child, I see you as being more intellectual, more observant, more kind of just watching, and maybe a little bit shy as well, because I think there's a shyness that can be present with Virgo and Libra. Um, and but yeah, and again, both of them have that tendency to be reading, writing, drawing, something of that nature. So you may have been a very creative, maybe artistic kid, wanted to learn a lot. And that's most of what I wanted to say. Last thing before I wrap this up here. So this contradicts some of what I've said. So having Saturn in Sagittarius means that you would have this natural inhibition or fear to travel or to experience things that are different than your comfort zone, I guess, or whatever you're used to. And this would especially be present early on. So you may, as a child, you may have not traveled very far at all. But this contradicts a lot of, what I talked about in the beginning of this video, that you are meant to have a lot of different experiences. You're meant to travel, maybe very well, like physically travel very far, but also a lot of it would just be traveling in your mind, experiencing these exotic ideas or beliefs, or, maybe different cultures, different um, countries, different ways that people are, that they live. Although you'd be afraid of this early on, it'd be hard for you. It shows that it's what you're meant to do eventually. And there's a lot of other placements in your chart that show that you're meant to go on these kind of grand adventures. You have North Node in Aries as well, so you you'd be maybe more shy early on, but you'd eventually learn to be more outgoing, more exuberant, more confident. You also lack fire in your chart, even more so than Earth. So it could be hard for you to um, to to identify with the fire traits. So to be really bold and confident, and just to get out there and do something crazy. You may shy away from that, especially early on, but this is something you would improve on much, or that you probably have already improved on, especially in your late 20s when you experienced your Saturn return. So going into your 30s, you'd be probably much more open to experiencing different things. Um, and that's what Saturn teaches us. Although we're challenged initially, by the area where Saturn is, we work through it, and especially after our first Saturn return, we start to embrace those themes more, and eventually, ideally, we can become an expert in that area. And again, for you, it's just traveling, experiencing different things, getting out of your comfort zone, and again, there's a lot of other factors in your chart that point to that, all those themes being very important to you as well. So I encourage you to do that, to get out of your comfort zone. I don't know. I'm almost thinking like I already established that I feel like you'd be a really great nurse or something. So I think the perfect example that I could think of would be doing, I forget what it's called. There's letters for it, but you can like volunteer and be a nurse or a teacher in some other country. Something like that would be Peace Corps. That's what I was thinking. But I don't know. And it doesn't, I'm not saying you literally have to do that, but something where you can incorporate those same themes, where you can, go off into this other world and help people there. I think that would be really, really perfect for everything in your chart. But that's pretty much what I have to say. So thank you for this opportunity to read your chart. It was definitely a very interesting one. I hope what I said was accurate and helpful for you. And please let me know, because it's hard for me to really know until after I get the confirmation. But I generally get really good reviews. But at the same time, I don't know what I'm saying when I'm reading the chart. I'm just reading the astrology. I don't know 100% until I get that confirmation. So. But anyway, thank you for this request, and thanks to anyone else for watching. Again, if you want to contact me, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.